It's Restaurant Week in Belfast, and it made me think about how the culinary culture in my home city has transformed over recent years and how it really bears no relation to what it was on offer in the dark days of my youth. So I wanted to talk to someone who has been a key part of that radical change and find out how they've done it. And like Restaurant Week itself, I have a special deal for you. I've got a 2-for-1 offer as I'm joined by two brilliant chefs to take us through the challenges, the heartbreak, the exhilaration, and the sheer joy of running a restaurant business. Hello and welcome to Trading Up. This is the business podcast from the Irish News, where we dig deep to learn lessons from others in business. The podcast is produced in association with EY. And remember, you can get in touch with me at any time by email on tradinguppodcast@gmail.com. Today's guests are two brilliant chefs, Niall McKenna from the Waterman and its Cookery School and James Street, and Marion Lancial of the Cheval Noir. Well, listen, it's great to have you both here.
Thank you.
So, Niall, you have been part of this transformation of Belfast. You've seen it change with your various venues over the years, but the scale of the operation now for you is it's quite vast, actually, isn't it? Between the restaurants and the Cookery School and everything.
Yeah, it's just trying to, instead of just going down the format of just restaurants, we've sort of gone off into event spaces, Cookery School, even though the Cookery School has been going for like 11 years now, 12 now. It's really going into the event, trying to give people other opportunities within the building, within our company, as in staff-wise, but also for guests, customers, clients, where they can come in and then say, right, what else have you got to offer? So it's all about experiences. That's what we're trying to really get behind within the company.
Yeah, and when we get into it later on, I do want to dig into the whole business side of things, because it's a very, very tricky business. The figures out recently, I think, from Hospitality also show so many restaurants struggling. So it can be tough, but I know you'll have a few tips on that front. And Marion, you, of course, you started in Belfast under Niall's tutelage, isn't that right?
Absolutely, yes. I studied at the Cookery School with Niall 4 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And but your home is Normandy, France.
Yes, it is.
So let me kick off with you, and let's get your story, how you ended up on these shores, and where your love of cooking began. So tell me about Normandy. Tell me about where you first got an inkling that this cookery thing might be for you.
Oh, it arrived a bit late in my life, but I always loved cooking. And my grandmother had a restaurant in Normandy, and we grew up there with my cousins and all the family. So all the big tables with all the food in the middle, the big gathering was something very special. So yes, always I grew up with that.
Yeah, I mean, in France has such a rich and deep and history of food culture. Every region has its own food culture. So I can sort of picture the scene, a grandmother, a hotel, a restaurant. Was this traditional sort of cookery from the area?
Well, it was very traditional because on top of that, our family has a farm. So we have loads of fruit and cream and butter and everything coming from that farm. So she was using all those produce, and I grew up with seasonal produce, local produce. It was her thing. So yeah.
And again, we mentioned the cream and butter. I mean, that basically is anything about French cooking. I just think throw another pack of butter in there; it'll be fine. That's
fine. Yeah, that's Normandy style. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll not worry about the what the other implications of that are. But you didn't. You say you came to it late, so you did have this family background, but it wasn't your first choice. You were up to other things first of all, weren't you?
I did so many things, but it was I never managed to keep a job long enough to really explore. I was bored, and I changed a lot. I did journalism school. I studied music. I studied economy. I studied graphic, and then I came back to the restaurant because I think it was calling me.
So it brought you in, and at one point then you were telling me before about how your grandmother had got ill, and this is a woman who had, I suppose, inculcated this love of food in you, and here she was unwell and maybe not eating so well off her food.
Yeah,
This
it was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was a challenge, and this is where I really got back in the kitchen with her. It was my main purpose to make her eat something. So I was taking all her recipes, trying to make the things she used to like, she used to do, and just to try. And this is how I got into my first restaurant in France in fine dining. Yeah.
And fine dining is a certain level. just means that basically not just the food, but everything has to be kind of perfect. And I suspect in France, people are picky customers too.
Yes, they are. But we're picky chefs, so that's good. It works well.
And so you learned on the job there.
I learned so much on that job, yes. And this is where my love for pastry arrived. I like the precise of the ingredients, and 1 gram is 1 gram, and I like to have fun with that.
Yeah, I'll come back to your story. I like this thing about the pastry thing. Niall, are you a pastry chef, or are you more of a kind of, what's your skill, do you think, in the kitchen?
Being realistic, when I first started off in London, it was like everybody starts off in pastry. So usually you do a year on pastry. I ended up doing 3 years on pastry. So you're usually first in, last to leave, and you're getting the night bus home. So I hated pastry.
Let's be honest, okay.
It was the lack of sleep was killing you. But it's crucial. It's crucial for every chef.
Hard? I mean,
It's not hard.
No, it must be, surely. I muck around in the kitchen, like I can throw a few things together in a pan, if you like. That's my skill of cooking. In other words, like if there's food there, I can somehow make it into something. But when it comes to like baking or that kind of thing, that's not my skill.
Called a good recipe and weighing out properly.
So you have to.
It's all about precision. That's why it's so important when you first start cooking. You do go into pastry, you do go into larder. So what it does is sort of molds you in the way where you're organized, the way your brain works, you're methodically, and that's what pastry does for you. And to me, that's the importance of it. Most chefs shy away from it. And I'd actually even say now, it just actually annoys me doing it. But I have to do it. I will definitely do it. Not a problem. But once again, it's one of those ones. It's just memories.
Yeah.
And do I love eating pastry? And I haven't got a sweet tooth. That's the worst thing about it. But I haven't got a sweet tooth. But it's one of those things, you have to learn it. You have to enjoy it, and you do enjoy it. But when you get into it, but I love doing it for years. But now, because I sort of own the restaurants now, I don't do as much as I used to, only through the cookery school.
Yeah, so you can get others to do it for you. Well, that's handy enough. So, Marion, but you have developed a love of pastry. It is precision engineering, if you like, in terms of cookery. Because if you get something wrong, it just doesn't work.
And no, it doesn't work at all. It's catastrophe. Yeah.
But you traveled then. It wasn't just France. So you've moved then at one point, then you end up moving to the States. So are you married at this stage? You get married and you travel abroad, or you with a partner, or what takes you
married? We got married in France before, like 3 months before leaving to the United States, in Washington, D.C. So newly married, we arrived in the States. Yeah, and then you have to start all over again because it's a new country, it's a new culture, which is very interesting. You understand things works differently, I guess. So it's really about understanding how their culture is food-wise and just go for it.
And you developed new skills there, which then you were eventually able to bring back. You're working in DC, yes. Which of course has lots of kind of embassies, because Washington DC, political capital. So was that something you were involved in terms of where you were sort of?
Yeah, so I was doing private, mainly pastry, private chef for some ambassadors and embassies. I did Australia, I did United Kingdom, France, obviously. So it was a different job, and I liked it. It was fun. And then I got back in restaurants, not doing pastry at first. I had a very difficult and awful experience in a Lebanese restaurant. I love Lebanese food, and I'm very good at it now. I learned so many things, but it was not my thing. So got back into being a pastry chef in a fusion restaurant with Colombian, French, American food, and we navigated. The head chef was French, so we navigated through that, and it was very interesting to work in this type of kitchen. Yeah.
So then, at some point, you get this. Your husband gets a posting to Belfast with his job, yeah.
Yes.
And you then think, well, gosh, I better get some work here.
And then you start again.
Yeah, you start again. This seems to be it's a kind of theme that happens not just for you, but a lot of people in this kind of business. But so you move into Belfast, and how did you end up in Niall's establishment?
Well, at that point, your mindset is very different. So you know that if you want things to happen, you have to go get it, and you have to not be scared and just do it, and you'll see. So I was at my mom's. It was in July, and I sent an email to Niall and Joanne and 2 others cookery school because my husband was away and I had to be there for the kids. So it was like working in night shift in restaurant was a bit difficult at that moment. So I wanted to start slow and sure of what I was doing. and sent 3 emails, 3 cookery school, and Joanne answered me within the hour saying, "Listen, come in Belfast and we'll meet." And yeah, that's how it started.
And Joanne, of course, is your other half, Niall, in life and in business. So what do you think it is that she saw in the CV that landed from Marion, and what is the kind of skill that you need in your business for spotting talent and picking the right people?
Being realistic, because she was trained in France, we just know it's classically trained. So in other words, it's been trained properly. So no matter what, that's the bottom line. And then after that, it comes down to personality, especially with the cookery school. You can be the best chef in the world, but if you haven't got a personality, you can't communicate, forget about it. So as soon as we met Marianne, seen the smile straight away. Then she was a bit of banter, and crack and personality, and then straight away that was it, done.
You thought she was half Belfast already, did you?
Yeah, she fitted in perfectly. She doesn't take any crap, no nonsense whatsoever. But she's brilliant, and so she fitted in straight away, and then she just got on with it.
Good stuff. So look, I'll come back to where things are at for you at the moment, Marianne, because I know you're running the Cheval Noir, which is in the Dark Horse. So the French version of that, which is where people can go and get the nice traditional brasserie French food. Yeah. So French onion soup, croque monsieur. That's really excellent. And I have been, and it is good. So I know that. But now let me talk about your journey then.
Mm-hmm.
So Marion grows up in a place where food is everything in some ways in France. And as you say, you spot somebody coming with French training, you're going to say, let's hire them because they know something. It's almost instinctive. It's not really. Come from here, it's not necessarily so, is it?
And when I first started training, it was really 14 Strand Restaurant, then Denadrian. Denadrian was one of the few hotels that was doing everything, bread, game, the whole 9 yards. Pat Kells was the executive chef. Clifford Caspi was the head chef. But it was all table service. It was coming to the end of that whole, the glory time of the early 80s, 70s, where it was all prim and proper. I was dressed out, going out for dinner.
But that was old school. But also, and you had, when we chatted before, you mentioned that they were doing everything like that. And it did sort of surprise me because my memory of, if you like, going back to the 70s, 80s, if you like, in Belfast was it was hotel cooking, but it could be pretty basic. Like the starter would be a kind of thimble of orange juice if you were lucky.
Melon balls or whatever, yeah. Being honest, that's probably me being totally unfair, but the memories I have are probably not quite 100% right, but the memories were it was positive. The people I work with are positive, and I learned because I was very young. I was only 16, so to me, no matter what was the best thing in the world. Next thing, I heard of a guy called Paul Rankin, and he was opening a restaurant. He was going for a star, and I didn't even know what a Michelin star was then. So what's Michelin? Never heard of it. So next thing I went to work for Paul. Went in. Paul had the star, and what I learned with Paul in 3 years, if it wasn't for Paul, I wouldn't be where I am now. He's the one giving me the structure, the passion for food.
Yeah, Paul started off with Roscoff, and it was a thing that people talked about, wasn't it?
Paul's knowledge of product, his knowledge of product was insane. I mean, the amount of chefs came through his doors who he's trained up has never been matched. He was always positive. He was always enthusiastic. Him and Jeannie were amazing. He had Robbie there, Eugene Callahan. It was just incredible the amount of chefs came through, but they were all foodies, and they were all passionate, and it was a tough kitchen. It was a hard kitchen. It was long hours. When the days you were doing, the hours you were doing, but it was all about training. And you had to come your day off. You didn't mind coming your day off. But what I got from Paul was structure, organisation, passion for food, knowledge of product. It was all the thing. And that day then, it was really, in the north, it was Paul Rankin, and in the south, it was Patrick Gilbo, Kevin Thornton, Paul Flynn. And it was chefs down there who were, chapter one, all the rest of it. It was great chefs in Dublin, down south, JP and all the rest of it. But, in the north, Paul was the one. Paul, for me, I never worked with Michael, so I can't say about Michael.
Michael Dean.
Michael Dean.
Yeah, another big name here. But so you did your training with Paul at Belfast, having done the old school, if you like, in the Denadri. So what, then you were off to London after that, was it?
Yeah, I went to London, did a bit with Nico, bit with Marco, Gary Rhodes, he was, and...
We just dropped these names, by the way, sorry.
Marco Pierre-White, Igor Landis, Gary Rhodes.
Gary Rhodes, of course, died very young, and I've heard other chefs talk about him as the chef's chef.
The thing is, forget about the TV, he was a great businessman. He was an unbelievable businessman. He understood the value of a pound, he understood the value of product. But the guy was the most organised chef I've ever met in my life. And that's the one thing I learned from him, was structure, organisation to make your life easy. You know, it's knowing your craft, knowing your recipes, just knowing what you're doing. And that's what I got from him. And I thought to myself, oh, I'll go and work for him for like a year. I was there for nearly 3 years. And then went on to City Roads. And then I went to the Avenue and worked with Dean Carr. And that was a bigger, busier restaurant, which I've never done. I went in there and it was just mind-watering. And the amount of money they were dealing with, the quality of product. There's nowhere in Ireland could afford it. Like we had just 4 women just picking salads. We had 3 people just making bread. You know, it was insane. And
just when people go to one of these fancy restaurants and they think it's all about just the extra profit or the fancy environment. But behind the scenes, the reason it's so expensive is you've got 3 women just picking out the right salad leaves, yeah?
But it was so busy. It was always full, but it was full of, I think is one thing I learned about Roscoff, and at this point I knew I was going to open a restaurant. So to me, the most important thing is atmosphere. I love a buzzy restaurant. You know what I mean? Balthazar and places like that. I love a buzzy, loud restaurant. I love that. I'm not a fan of house restaurants. I want to hear the atmosphere. I want to see the waiters. I want to see waiters have a personality. And that's the one thing I got from the Avenue. You know, it was, the wine list was unbelievable. You had 2 world champion barmen there. You had Carrie Wicks, was the manageress. The team was insane on the floor. And in the kitchen, you know, you're looking at these guys around you and they're all top of their game within London, but doing volume. Like, when I say volume, 120 for lunch, 160 at night, 24 chefs in the kitchen. You know, so it was really full on, but the quality of food was sick. It was absolutely unbelievable. And that's what I loved about the Avenue. And then from that, I went on to, I had to do a hotel. So I worked for Ferndale, Tim and Kip Kemps, who are boutique hotels. And I did their kitchens there. And that was a real eye-opener. And once again, it was about making budgets, making margins, you know, the finance side behind it. And that's where the Avenue came in with Chris Barger. He was the owner, and he was like a big city broker. And that's where you learned the business side of it. And at that point there, I came back to Belfast to set up 10 Square at the very beginning. It was only like a 5-month contract, wherever it was. And then I lived in Belfast. We just bought a flat in London. We just got married. And then I said to my wife, and Joanna did an amazing job in London. And then we decided we're going to go back to Belfast and open a restaurant. So at least once a week she says to me, it's down to you, we're here.
Does she blame you, or is it
100% every week? You know,
say she probably could have had an easier life if she'd stuck with a good job in London.
100%.
Well, Joanne's in the sort of business end.
She's the boss. Yeah. So she runs. She is really she runs the company. You wouldn't ask her to lift the glass. You wouldn't ask her to lift the plate. But she understands good food. She understands the structure of a restaurant. She understands the style of a restaurant. The important things, looking in the temperature of a restaurant, the height of a seat, is it clean, is it tidy? And that's what Joanne's great and amazing at, the small detail. And the things you think you spot, she'll spot before anybody else. A light bulb out or everything else. So as a team, I think we work very well. As my couple, it's bloody hard going. It's really hard going.
It's hard to manage that combination, but
you don't switch off. It's 24/7. Your whole life is the restaurant.
And so the first restaurant is at James Street South?
James Street South was the first restaurant. White walls. Aidan McGrath was the architect on it and designed it for us. And then he turned around one day to say, what's your budget for art? And I went, pardon me? What? And then so I went to no budget, don't know anything about art. And then he introduced us to Janša Fendereski. And then the love of art came in. And then even like we were getting their license. And then Turlough Montague, the barrister, came up to me, got off his seat, came walking towards me, and I'm going, oh, what have I done wrong here? Going for my license. First time ever in a courtroom. And he's saying, oh, is these David Crone paintings? And I'm going, oh, God. Yeah, I think so. So to me, it came a thing where we start changing our art every season, Irish artists, of course. And to me, between the seasonal food, the art, the restaurant, white walls, it was something very special. It was something beautiful room, beautifully designed. I just loved it. And then 2008 came, and then it was just the wheels came off. And then we decided...
2008, just to remind people, they will know mostly, financial crisis, everybody's in trouble, the banks have basically gone bust, and everybody's overextended on property,
100%.
And nobody's spending money, or nobody wants to be seen spending money.
Nobody's seen to spend money. So then we decided, of course, I said to Joanne, we're going to have to open another restaurant.
Well, obviously, that's the thing to do. Yeah, that's logically.
And Joanne looked at me and went, you mad? And I says, but a totally different concept. He says, we're going to do very like French brasserie, American steakhouse type of thing. And the building next door came up where Vigo's used to be. And then we opened the Barn Club. And
just that thought process. So you can see what's happening. You're not stupid. You can see where there is a big financial crisis, such as none of us have probably had experienced in our lifetime before. And you're saying and persuading Joanne that it is a good time to invest everything in a new restaurant, a huge extension to what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah.
And sorry, just explain the logic of that again.
The logic is, if we stayed with James Street, we'd be bust. We lost everything. That's the bottom line. So if we stayed still, fine dining was done. So we had linen on the table. We at that point we've just spent 2 years before we spent 120,000 on the refit of James Street. So we did get rid of the linen, put lovely wooden tops on, open kitchen, and it was an absolute beautiful looking restaurant. But once again, it was perception. People can't be seen to eat in these restaurants. Everyone's perception throughout the UK and Ireland and the world. It was all about perception. So then we moved next door, and then the same people came in there. They started going to the bar and grill. I wouldn't say it was flying, but we were keeping our head above water, and it was very tough. And then we got through that there. James Street was still taking over, but it wasn't really doing it, but we had to keep the name alive. And it was probably, my heartstrings, and I should have known better where I should have merged them a lot earlier. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, we decided to move the bar and grill and James Street and merge it into one, which had to be probably financially one of the best things we ever did. And then we opened Hattie's up. We realised we had to get, at this point here, there wasn't too many hotels in the area other than Europa, that's William, and Holiday Inn and stuff like that in the area where James Street is. And then at this point here, we thought the Cathedral Quarter is the place to be. Then we went to, it was Printers, and we came in, we took Printers over.
Just at the bottom of Commercial Court, there's in Donegal Street, yep.
And then we opened Hattie's. Mm-hmm. And then Hattie's, long, thin restaurant, open kitchen, and it was a kitchen upstairs, private dining rooms, all the rest of it. And that had its own challenge as well because of the area, because it's very different to James Street, how people ate in the area, how they came in for one course, come in for 2 courses, sat at the bar area, talking to chefs. So to me, it was very, very different. It definitely wasn't as busy as I thought it was going to be compared to James Street, purely because James Street was getting more hotels open in the area, and that was the key thing. And then we opened Cast and Crew. We had a 2-year contract with them.
Cast and Crew was down in Titanic Quarter.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was an agreement with them. They wanted us down there. We went down for like 2.5 years. But during the summer, it was amazing. But during the winter, it was very, very tough. And we only had a set contract with them. And I says, right, after it's done, that's me done in the area. Still, it was great during the summer. It was amazing during the summer. And you had the Titanic building there. And starting to run the Belfast Met. It was down there as well. So there was a lot going on and people. But at that point, there was too many other things going within the company.
So that restaurant, ultimately, you didn't stick with that. But did you learn anything in particular from it?
Yeah, not to do it again.
Okay, that's number one.
It was just when you turn around, and to me, don't get me wrong, it was a really good business, but it's not what I wanted to do. And to me, and one thing in business, like it's okay plodding away and thinking, it's making me money or whatever it is. But to me, if you're into it and you're passionate about it, when times get tough, that's when you can dig in. And to me, taking pride in your business, no matter what it is, when times get tough, and by God, they will happen at some point, you have to be true to yourself, true to your business, be over the numbers, know when it's time to give up or when it's time to move on or time to change or time to spend money. You have to do it. And that's it. And sometimes it's really hard to do. In the restaurant game, it is like throwing a dice. Like friends of mine, Richard Corrigan, turn around and says, now there's nowhere harder in the UK or in Ireland to do business than in Belfast. And it's just purely because of where we are. It is very, very difficult. It's challenging. But at the same time, you get this like 8-year, 9-year cycle of clientele coming in, and it just constantly changes. Same as every city. But Belfast itself has been very, very good to me. The product, the people, everything I love, but it's very, very different to anywhere else.
And Richard Corrigan, you mentioned there, of course, he's a famous Irish chef, restaurants in London, and, very well known. And I think one of the things about restaurants that as a business, and we'll come to the Watermill and the cookery school in a minute, because this and how you've maybe merged other revenue streams in, but to think about it in terms of a business, I was thinking what's comparable. I mean, in some ways, the media business, like every day, say with a newspaper, or if we're doing TV news or whatever it is, you're starting with a blank sheet. Yeah. You might have certain raw materials to work with, and you fashion that into something that becomes a product that people are buying or advertisers are attaching themselves to, or there's some sort of revenue stream attached to it. And this, it seems to me that kitchens are a bit like that, restaurants are a bit like that. It's kind of mad, every day you're starting from scratch. People have to come in through the door, and you've got to serve them something that's going to make money.
To me, yeah, that's. It sounds to me, restaurants, because we've been doing that long, we've done since like it was really 16 or 14, really. But to me, restaurants are, when you get something that works, to me, try not to change it. You put the perimeters, like the biggest problem in restaurants is you employ chefs or managers who try to put their own stamp on it. That's fine. They can put their own stamp on it to a degree, but it has to be in the perimeters of that business. What works, and don't be afraid to change. As I say, don't make mistakes. Don't make too many of them, and learn from them, of course, because you can't make money twice. And in restaurants, you definitely can't make. So it's like from people not showing up, book a table and don't show up, as in during the golf, which was very difficult for us.
So yeah, I touched on the tourism figures with Richard Ramsey in our Unpacked episode just recently, and I was shocked that actually overall, now we're still to dig into the longer term on this to see if those figures are true, but overall, tourism occupancy levels were down in July this year compared to previous year.
I see those figures. I tell you, to me, the golf, the tourist board, what they have done, they need more funding, definitely. But to me, things like the golf, things like the Duo, things like MTV, big ticket events are like an injection to the arm into Belfast and the north of Ireland. It is crucial. And to me, the golf with us was incredible. From coffee shops, to hotels, to restaurants, to our meat suppliers, veg suppliers, milk, dairy, everything else. It is a no-brainer for me. And the golf to us, it was incredible.
You had to hike your prices up there?
We did it slightly different. We kept our prices where they were. We keep them exactly the same. We put more fine wines on. So they've got, once again, the choices there are the bad. But what we did was we put on Dover sole, we put on lobster, we put on croque de boeuf. We put on high-end product. So it's sitting there. If they want to buy it, they can. But once again, it's like the American, the Asian, all the rest of it. That's what they want. They're away. They're out partying. They want the best. And once again, trying to get our staff around it, because especially the young staff can't believe, look how much they're spending on wine, look how much they're spending on food. And that's the world. Come outside Belfast, come outside the north of Ireland. That is where it is.
And that's a clever sort of approach to it, isn't it? That's spotting the opportunity of the nature of the customers that you're likely to get in, and say, staying in hotels in Belfast, but traveling up to the Gulf, they're spending a fortune just to come here in the first place. So they're going to want to have the best when they go out.
But you don't want to offend the people here. At the end of the day, our restaurants are based on the people from home. It's great to have tourism. It's great people coming here. But our number one to me is the people from here. That is my bread and butter. And they're the people you have to look after. And that is our mantle from corporate to the weekends that people spend their own money. And once again, during the week they spend one type. At the weekends they spend totally a different type. And how they spend their money is totally different. So to me, that is our base. People from Ireland is our core.
You don't deny them. Yeah.
No, you just have to look after them.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
I want to get back to Marion for a second, and then we'll come back to where she started with you in the cookery school and so on. But at the moment, Marion, you're running the Cheval Noir, right? Which is in the Dark Horse, which is Willie Jack, who's the Duke of York, and the Dark Horse there, and he's a famous publican here in Belfast. And what's your kind of mix, and how do you make that work for you at the moment? What is the kind of food that's on offer, and what do you think it is that draws people in?
Well, we wanted to have some French oriented food, so it was really bistro food, simple thing. The faculty to have a lunch very fast. So it's for the people working around us, and they just come half an hour, they have their sandwich, they have their croque monsieur, their beef bourguignon, their onion soup, and then you can just go back to work. And that's funny because we have them coming and they're hiding a little bit because they go in the corner and they stay there and it's safe and no one can see them. And they have their pint of Guinness and they just have their sandwich and then they go. And it's brilliant. So he wanted that. So I worked with him just to propose that kind of things. Yes.
Yeah. And it's, again, I think what I like about it, and I think what probably the customer then maybe is responding to, is this idea that you can have high quality but sort of simple food delivered.
Right.
Timely as well. I think the point is if you're in for lunch, you don't have hours to spend. So you want it delivered quickly, but you want it something good and healthy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're delivering. And the French have always done that well.
Well, we do have loads of time during our lunch break in France. Take way too much, I think, when you think about it. Like compared to the States, again, it's just like 5 minutes a sandwich in front of the computer, fast.
No, the French
so
don't
in
have
France,
that.
it's like an hour and a half. It's a Friday, maybe 2 hours. So it's very different. But I understand. Then here it's a little bit faster, and I understand that you don't want to lose 2 hours on the lunch.
I remember one time being in Paris many years ago, and I was with my wife. We were exploring the flea markets of Tignancourt in Paris, and came to lunchtime, and all these little stalls and antiques dealers just closed. That was it. They're not dealing with you at that point. And they sort of flipped. I remember watching one kind of flipping over like a kind of crate or something. He threw a kind of tablecloth across it, whips out a bottle of wine. The next thing, they're having a full, delicious-looking lunch. There's no kind of eating a sandwich at the desk. That's the French way, proper lunch. Is it still like that, by the way?
It is still like that, yes, absolutely. Well, now that's funny because one of the main newspaper in France got an article last week about French people will start to eat sandwiches in front of their computer. It's total nonsense for us.
It is good.
So that's the way it should be.
But you've seen probably, I mean, just to stick with this for a second, we've probably seen a decline in what we might have called the liquid lunch over the years. Have you seen that change? Yeah,
massively. It's totally that's gone. That's totally gone. Lunches in Belfast, very, very challenging. That it used to be lunches were your profit. That's where I sure look at it. And at the moment now, we're only open 3 lunches a week in James Street and Waterman. That's all we're open up. And it's always Saturday, Sunday, and then Friday. There's no point because there's nobody in Belfast in the offices. So to us, it's very challenging. But the idea, because once again, businesses are under pressure as well. And that's where it is. That's reality of where it is. And London's the same, Manchester, Leeds, Dublin.
And then we'll get COVID and the pressures that has made and they're changing on the kind of nightlife scene as well. So we've talked a bit about James Street and developing that, expanding that. You moved to the Cathedral Quarter with Hadskey's, but then your next big move was the Waterman, and that actually is a bit of a mix, and I don't know whether people fully appreciate what's going on there, but tell us about how that came into being and what was going through your head at the time.
It started with Mrs. Jack, Willie Jack's wife. She virtually turned around and Willie got the whole building, the whole where the Harp Bar is and all the rest of it. It was a massive, massive area. I think it must have been about 50,000 square feet. And then it sort of came to the point, do you want to take it off their hands? So I sort of said I agreed with Willie Jack. Then about a week, 2 weeks later, I brought Joanne around the building with Willie and says, "This is amazing. Look at this for a space in a restaurant." And Joanne's supposed to be really, really good. And then she stopped and looked at me and says, "You already agreed this here now?" I went, "Yeah, huh?" Just looked at me and I thought, "Oh my God, it's going to knock me out here." And then,
so you said earlier on, you did say that there is a challenge managing the business and the life partnership as well. I can see where this is a challenge for Duran, if nobody else,
Somebody smart and somebody like me, and you don't want to deal with me. And, it's like a human hand grenade, And so that's how it came about. And then just as we got it all agreed, all done, COVID came.
So you've been through a financial crisis with one big expansion. You decide on your next huge move in the middle of COVID.
Before COVID just happened.
Just before, right?
Just before COVID kicked off, we got the building, and we're dealing with architects and all that side of it. And then for some reason, we got a bad feeling. It was everything was sort of running away from us. We lost control. And that was from architects, builders. It was just so many people getting excited. And then
you're looking at costs.
Oh yeah, we're looking at costs here. We're just turning around, and then Joanne just turned around, and Joanne's got feeling turned around and says, "We need to put this here." So we just heard this, "Guys, let's stop. Let's regroup. Let's stop. Let's just, this is not a vanity product. This is a proper business, so we have to look at it properly." So Joanne sort of made a decision, right? That's us done. I said, "Totally agree with you. Just put it. I've got a bad feeling here." And then, as I said, COVID kicked in. Everyone was locked down. We did the box scheme, all the rest of it. And then all of a sudden, as I call them, we got the hurry builders in. The ones who do all the demolition. And
just I'll pause for a second. Sorry, you did the box scheme, and that just was another way of getting revenue during COVID. You weren't the only ones to do it, but you were doing this home delivered high end food, basically.
Yeah, everybody was doing it, and like even Joanne was going around, and we were buying everybody's box scheme. Anybody we could buy.
And test what to see if it was good?
No, just to support everybody.
Okay.
Just to support, still to this day, stock was the best. Stock was the flavour. Danny did amazing food, and then you went around the mall and Noble and all the rest of it. And we're all talking to each other, and everybody's nattering away, and it really brought the industry together massively. And then I was getting up at 5 a.m.
Some people were getting Domino's, but others were getting, James Street South delivered to it seems, for the Waterman.
But once again, it had to be cost effective. It had to be at the right price. So once again, you're doing your socials, you're doing your photographs. It kept you busy, kept my head straight, kept everybody else's head straight. So the industry, it really changed the industry. And I thought it was it sounds crazy. It definitely was a positive thing for the people who owned their own restaurant and owned their own businesses. And it was like, then you had the guys doing the cocktails, you had the guys doing this here. And all of a sudden, it just shows you when your back's against the wall where the industry just stepped up. And out of them all, and then we had our people like had furlough on. I had to be explained with everybody was an expert in furlough. I hadn't got a clue what furlough was. Explain me what furlough is. And as I said to everybody, it's like, we're paying this out. At some point, we're going to have to pay it back. Just give you a heads up there, guys.
It's called national insurance. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what's happened to the recent budget.
Exactly. So that's how it came about. And then all of a sudden, it was Paul and Sean and Dave. All my managers sort of like stepped up and came in and gave us a hand boxing up. So myself and Daniel, who's one of my KPs, he did the dishes, I did all the cooking. We put it on,
sorry?
kitchen porter.
Oh, yes, right.
So he came into the kitchen. We started at 6 a.m. We did it all. We got it together. And then social distance downstairs, they boxed it all up. One at one end of the restaurant, one at the other, came down the lift. And then all of a sudden we get all these different suppliers were coming, picking it up, bringing it away from value cab to this, to that. And everybody's doing the same thing. And biggest challenge is trying to find cardboard boxes. And everybody's like borrowing off one person, So you're constantly talking to everybody. And it was just, like, I just remember the restaurateurs, and it was absolutely brilliant. And that side of it was really good, where you could see the people who were hungry for their business, won their piece. And the same individuals who did those schemes, their business are still going, and you can see how they're pushing their business on. It was that mindset of, I'm not going to sit back here. I'm going to make a living for my family, push my business on. And the same individuals are still pushing their business on. And to me, it tells me a lot about those individuals.
So that was impressive. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's fun to hear about it now, and I think, but it was mad.
We kept all the suppliers. We kept all our budgets.
Everybody
fishmongers.
Yeah,
we keep all these guys going because they weren't selling anything, and that's why I've got such a great relationship with all my suppliers, because I was keeping them going, they were keeping me going, and it was like the Sturgeon. It was just him and his son in the butchery instead of all those guys. Everybody else furloughed. So to me, it was incredible.
But the thing is, you have now got this building that you're looking at. You've been scared off by the prices of the refits and the architects and all of that.
Yeah.
So you decided you can go another way. It does have to be done. So what do you do?
So we had all the offices in the back building. We took staircases out. It was major structural work. We got a new roof put on the big room. But we wanted exactly the same, looking like a warehouse, but insulated and all the rest of it. So we got them in. We did the work ourselves, got it all organised. And then all of a sudden we turned around, and because of the cookery school, we're allowed to do the cookery school of social distancing, and we got the offices done. So we're starting to claw on through the box scheme, plus then the cookery school. Our team is very, very tight at this point here, and we're just clawing away at it, pound shillings and pounds, pound shillings and pence, and that's where we're at. And then all of a sudden, right, we've got a breath now. Let's design the restaurant. Joanne went in. We'll start with the big room. We'll get the kitchen done. So we virtually took all the equipment out of Hatskey's and moved it down there. We moved the team from Hatskey's down to Waterman, and then we set it up, and then we started going. So we had the big room, but anything behind the scenes was a building site. So if you looked at the building, it looked amazing. If you opened one door, it was a building site behind the door. So a lot of doors we had to keep locked. Like the wee room in Waterman was a storeroom full of like building bags of cement, plasterboard, all the rest of it. But if you looked at the restaurant, it looked incredible. But behind the scenes, it was an absolute disaster. And we got through there, and then as we made money, then we did the wee room, we did the cinema room, we've got our tasting room, and now we're constantly reinvesting. And as we make money, we reinvest. And that's one thing, we don't stretch ourselves out. We don't get loans as such, if we can help it. But to me, a lot of the banks helped us out. We're building the building, all the rest of it. They understood where we are. And for anybody to lend a restaurant money, it's bloody difficult to get off the banks, because we are such a challenging industry. The amount of restaurants go bust. A lot of people who have restaurants are happy getting a wage out of it. You need more in a business than just a wage. So to me, it was a very, very challenging time. And that's where the pressure came on Joanne, where she had to make everything work out. And when she said no meant no, we can't afford it.
And what you have now, though, besides the new Waterman restaurant, you have a cookery school.
Yeah.
You have offices there let out as well.
Yeah, we've got offices. We've got offices. There's probably about 50, 60 in the offices. Not too sure. Totally. A load of people in the offices, and they're different companies. So you go down Half Bap Lane and you go in through the back, and then you've got the restaurant. Then you've got at the moment now we've got 4 private dining rooms. One that does 90, one that does 38, one does 12, one does 22. And then we're going to do, on the mezzanine above the kitchen, we're going to do another tasting room, which is an open kitchen. Just an open kitchen. So we do a chef's table with a full kitchen in there. And we're going to do up to 32, possibly, hopefully.
And is this about creating those new experiences?
It's all about tourism. It's like enough for a tour bus to come in and they can go in for, say, 35, 40 minutes, an hour, maybe like pour the perfect kind of Guinness, maybe learn how to do a scone, soda bread, something very, very simple, traditional Irish food. And that's the angle where the mezzanine comes. And that'll be during the day. And then at night times, we're going to open the cookery school for the Joe public. So to me, it's having different arms, different things, doing different things within the building. So it's just constantly going. Because once again, as you said, a restaurant, you're sitting there waiting, customers coming, booking through your social media, advertising, all the rest of it. They're still coming. So I need to do something more long term. So tour groups book in year and year. How many times? Twice a year. They come into us, or twice a week for a year. We know that's going to come in. Then you've got corporate, which is key to us. From Lunds, there's Tunes, the Cars McDowell, all these different commercial companies come in and then they take our premises over. And then plus during the summer, we then do weddings because during the summer, corporate contracts, weddings start. So we're trying to get as many fingers in as many pies.
You've sort of grown this, the way you've explained it is, yes, of course, you've taken risks, you've borrowed at certain times, but you've tried not to overextend with borrowing, and to sort of fund as much as possible from ongoing revenues. And so it's a challenging business, but you've got to understand the business. There was one thing that stood out to me where we were chatting before, and you mentioned about, say, managing costs, and I suppose it's a lesson for any business. But interesting in yours, just like one example was you mentioned, say, somebody breaks a glass, an expensive wine glass. So how does that compute in your head?
To me, I say to the guys in James Street, if you break a glass, that's the price of a really good sirloin getting thrown in the bin.
So it's the equivalent, and I can picture that. You think breaking a glass is just breaking a glass. Yeah. But if I see somebody throwing it, sirloin, breaking the bin,
full of steak in the bin,
yeah,
that's the way you look at it. And once again, that comes off your bottom line. You can't make that twice. And as like Nicky Hill says, from Galgorn Group, every pound's a prisoner, and you have to look at it that way.
And how does that add up over a year then if you're breaking glasses? Well, that was the painful point then.
Being honest, probably about $4,000.
$4,000 worth of breakages.
Yeah, easy.
And what does that mean in terms of turnover then that you need to make up?
Times of 4.5.
So 4.5. So you're talking like nearly
20 grand. Yeah. Good Saturday night plus a half a Friday night. That's the way you look at it. That's the only way you look at it. You have to look at pounds, shillings, and pence. And once again,
it's funny actually, just making you tell me those figures. You're groaning because you feel the pain.
You only got 52 weeks of the year, and you've got Easter. You're going to be quiet. The 12th you're going to be quiet unless the golf's on. You got Halloween, any bank holiday, any Southern bank holiday. You're going to be busy. So virtually, like Joanne can look and Helen can look at what's going on within the business, and we know when we're going to be busy. As we say to anything with Belfast City Council, don't do it on a pay weekend. Don't put anything on a pay weekend because the restaurants are going to be busy anyhow. Try to do it in the middle of the month. Try to do it in the middle of the month when we're going to be a bit quieter. And that's where you need to be. It's not rocket science. You look where you're making money, right? That'll look after itself. Like people say, God, you're so busy on a Saturday night. If you're not busy on a Saturday night, close the restaurant. Close your business. That's the way I look at it. But to me, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's where you need to be. And even Friday, because years ago it used to be you had one great weekend, then you had one okay weekend, then you had one all right, and then you've got one bad. At the moment in our industry, you've got two bad, one okay, and one good. So within the industry, it is very tough. And no matter how often you say to the staff or management, I'm not taking away from them. They're like our staff are amazing. Until you've got it's your business, and nobody understands. And nobody understands, you're waking up at 5:30 in the morning and your head's just fried and you're going like, we've got this happening. And once again, it all comes back to one thing: revenue, turnover, wastage, how much power using, water, rates, and that's where we are at the moment. And then you look at other, I'm not going to have to be very political, other bodies, the wastage. Mm-hmm. Wastage to me is the absolute killer of any business. And no matter what it's public or private, wastage is the killer. So the most important thing in our company, the most expensive thing is staff time. And is utilising the staff as much as possible. And within our business, it's all about giving them bits of equipment, what saves time, And because our guys have got set contracts, set hours, they have to do their work within those hours. And don't get me wrong here. As I said already, from Dylan, Vincent, Cahill, Aaron, our core team of our kitchen, they're absolutely brilliant. But once again, you have to give them the tools to do their job, and you have to listen to them. You know, sometimes they push trying to get you to buy, if it's a kid, you're going like, seriously, you know, but within the perimeters of what you can do and what's going to make the business work better for them.
Yeah. So Marion, you worked then in the cookery school when you first came to Belfast. And I think what I want to sort of find out is, having, you know, grown up with the strong food culture that there is in France, then worked in, you know, DC. You've worked also, trained with Escoffier. And of course, that's a name that many people will know. And that's kind of like, you know, really kind of high-end training. And you'd have learnt there about not just the cooking, but also the cost management and things like that.
Absolutely.
What sort of percentage, by the way, would have been on that sort of business side?
So in Escoffier, it's very important for them education and training, and it's about a third of your training, the food cost, the management. It's not just about food cost, but it's management, how to manage a business, the front of house, the back of house. Because even if you're a chef and you're in the kitchen, if you want to open a restaurant, you have to be aware of everything, and you have to have an idea of what's going on even in your front of house. It's very important.
All these moving parts. Because I think, again, it's because people think I can cook, therefore I can chef, or I can cook, therefore I can run a restaurant. This is sort of what people think. And look, that's why you see a lot of cafes, restaurants open up, which will close a short time after. Yeah. But so that management side of it's very important.
It is.
You've worked in the cookery school, you've worked in different environments. You're now running the Cheval Noir. You know, when we hear Niall describing the process of growing a restaurant business, you know, the bottom line is, a lot of people listening to this who might be in other businesses be thinking, thank goodness I'm in my business, I'm not in that business. It's a tough business, isn't it? You know, so what is it that keeps you at it?
Oh, that's the passion. You're passionate about what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's about seeing people gathering at the table and having a good time and sharing those moments. Because in the end, would they remember your food? I don't even know, but they will remember the moment they passed in your restaurant and they had in your restaurant and with you, and so it's so important, and it keeps you going. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the passion for the whole experience. The food obviously is very important. They'll remember the food probably if it's really bad, and certain things will stand out.
If it's bad.
Yeah, and certain things will stand out.
And if the service is bad, and if the ambiance is bad, so it's really not just about the food; it's the whole experience.
You got to get the whole thing right, the whole package.
Yeah, because I remember, like, an old boss of mine turned around and says, "What makes a great restaurant?" And I says, like, well, the food. He says, I give a whole list, and he says, food number one. He says, no. Atmosphere, service, and food. There's the order. That is the most important things when it comes to a great restaurant. Great atmosphere, great service, great food. They're all very close to each other. Mm-hmm. But if you put food first before atmosphere and service, you're dead in the water. Because I've been to some brilliant restaurants. Food's incredible, bad atmosphere, great service. And once again, it's about the people you're with. Mm-hmm. And our industry is all about hospitality. You know, I've got this thing where there's nothing on the table. It doesn't need to be there, get it off. And that gives you a chance to talk to the customer if the customer wants to talk to you. You know, but once again, as I said, guys, you got 15, 20 seconds. If you can't say something to the customer in 15, 20 seconds, you see you're not doing it right, because the customers are with other people. But to me, the whole thing is atmosphere. That's where I'm in it now. Passionate about food, passionate about service, passionate about hospitality. And it's about being nice. And to me, that's the key thing. When I go into a restaurant and I hear the atmosphere and people talking and great staff, you know, just nice people. You know, you don't need a nurse working for you. Mm-hmm. You need somebody with a personality and a bit of humility and manners. And to me, if you have that there, and a bit of fun, a bit of crack.
And I think respect for the roles that people play, you know, being a waiter or being a barman is an important job. It's done right.
Great job. Yeah. It's a great job. I agree with had people with his, like Dylan's now 10 years, one of my second apprentice. And like Aaron's my first apprentice, the head chef at James Street. And Dylan's my second apprentice. He's been with me now 10 years. So he's 16. And as I say to all my head chefs, it's the head chefs run the business. Everyone comes from the kitchen out. The kitchen's there to make the front of the house look good. We all make mistakes. Turn it around, get it right, calm everybody down, get it out, and look after the customer. Because the customer that's the person who's paying the bill, look after them.
And I mean, I think where you are now, Marion, in the Dark Horse. So Willie Jack's a well-known public, but one of the things that people maybe who've been to his places will know is that he has staff who are with him over the long term as well. Yeah. So there is a level of service which goes beyond what you get in a lot of other bars. People that are there know their customers, they know their trade. And that all builds that relationship then with the customers.
Absolutely. I mean, when you have like a tall Stuart coming in and
Stuart,
just bringing you a
Stuart's
pint and joking with you and saying
he's on
like,
the,
"Oh,
he's even
you
on the,
look
on
fresh
the, on
today."
the,
It's so important.
he's even on the bar mats, isn't he? On the.
He's the most polite. The two most polite people in Belfast work in the dark horse.
Is that right?
Yeah, unbelievable. And Stuart is like, he should be a newsreader, being honest. I know they're so nice. They really are. But once again, like Paul and Ronan and all the rest of it.
Yes.
And Willie Jack's core team in the Duke and the Harp, the Dark Horse, like they've been in the industry a long, long time, but they're amazing individuals.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking just to sort of maybe talk about figures for a minute again. Hospitality Ulster, of course, represents the hospitality industry across the board, was issuing warnings. And it's kind of, and so, I mean, you know, I don't want to sort of talk things down at the moment because we're celebrating Restaurant Week and things like that. But this was a survey from June. And I suppose what they're picking out is the impact of recent increases to employer national insurance contributions. So as I was saying to you, who's going to pay for furlough? Well, everybody's paying for it now through things like that. Above average wage increase on hospitality businesses. So that's the increase we've seen potentially in things like minimum wage and so on, which have gone up quite a bit. And of course, you've had things like the massive jump in energy bills, which we had post the Ukraine invasion. All of this loading pressure onto your industry. So when you look at those are things you can't change. You've got to work with.
You can't change, but like, I mean, we've dealt with it. You can only put your prices up so much. We have had to absorb a lot of price hikes. That's another pressure on your business. So once again, all it is just slowing us down doing anything else because we don't have the money to do anything else. And it's like anybody who opens a business, you reinvest in your business to bring your business on. And to me, that's somebody, no matter what business you do, you have to do it. If you keep on taking everything out, your business isn't going to last too long, being honest. And I mean, the only thing that's going through my head now is VAT. Are they going to put VAT?
I say that the latest speculation actually is that VAT is back on the agenda again.
I mean, it's absolute madness. If we go down this road here now, there's very little left. And, do the numbers, crunch the numbers. You know what I mean? Take your wage cost, take your VAT, your GP cost. There's very little left. And there's no benefit for people opening restaurants other than being passionate and getting a wage. So to me, long term, it'll be very, very difficult. And a lot of businesses have come to the end of paying their furlough off. So the ones who are making profit, it was all going on paying furlough back. And not saying their staff stayed with them, a lot of staff left, but the employer's still paying that back. So to me, it's one of those ones there, you look at it now and it's not that I get nervous at the moment now, and it's the first time I actually turn around and says, what's coming down the road here? Because I know there's not a lot left. Even with our business, we're contracting, we can't afford it, we don't do it. And normally I'd be trying to open something else and pushing something else on. At the moment now we're just saying, let's calm everything down here.
Just wait for the next crisis, then you'll do something big.
I don't know. I'm 54 now. I don't think I've got it in me anymore.
Down. Let's talk about culture for a second. Belfast, and I suppose we started a bit with this. I didn't see it as a place, or Northern Ireland, if you like, as a place with a huge food culture. But we have great produce. I don't think we've disputed that, Marion. But what would you say, having seen things develop here since you've been here, but also coming here from other places? How do you rate our kind of food culture?
It's amazing. We are lucky to arrive in Belfast at that moment. It's just blooming everywhere. You have amazing suppliers. Thanks to Niall, like I get the chance to work with them, and they have gorgeous produce, and it just like make everything shine. Like if you have a good local producer, the taste will be there. His ethos compared with the food will be there, and you just have the chance to use this and cook with that, and it makes the whole difference. And it's all about supporting each other, I think, and it's important in that way to grow together and arrive here in our restaurants. We were not expecting anything really, nothing good, nothing bad. We didn't know too much about the food scene in Belfast before we arrived. We had like this quite bad idea about UK food in general.
Yeah, well, the French.
Sorry.
That's just a French thing. That's just a French thing, But some terrible meals in France as well.
Beans on toast and stuff like that. But no, it was a big surprise. It was a big surprise and a very good one.
Yeah. I mean, actually, funny. The French would slag off the English, but let's face it. Actually, you worked in London. I sometimes think like London is probably the best city in the world for finding different food.
I just think it's incredible. Like there's restaurants like Kiln and. you're spoilt. You're spoilt. And there's a friend of ours in London called Joe Warwick, and every time it's Joe anywhere, from the canteen in Notting Hill or the Fat Badger or all these small wee niche wee restaurants, and and then of course your Core and all the Michelin bit, and you got the Hawksboard, all those type of restaurants like that there. But to me, London is so exciting. It's so not pretentious. Some restaurants are great value. Some restaurants you look at you look at and seriously, the price of them is just ridiculous. So you can have either end of the spectrum in London. But to me, I just love going over there and seeing something new and meeting friends and going for dinner. But once again, they're finding it very difficult front of house as well. Same as Dublin. The front of house is like staff wise, they're finding it very, very different, very difficult since Brexit. So no matter what, through UK and Ireland, they're all. We virtually lost all our international staff. And that's where Brexit, COVID has really kicked in, and it'll take quite a few years, because I even spoke to Paul Rankin about it. It's a good 10 years off until we're back to where you were.
Mhm.
And it's once again, it's getting people in working here, from we thank God for the students, international students come in, they're pushing us through, they're helping us out. But within the industry, full-time staff, we find it very difficult.
Yeah, I think what people forget, and they keep talking about Northern Ireland being part of the single market for goods, but not the single market for people. So people can't come and work here as they did in the past.
Choice between Dublin or Belfast, London, Belfast, London and Dublin are going to get it.
Yeah.
So to me, we have to make, okay, we've got Queen's, got University of Ulster, they're drawing people in, but to me, we need more. We need people come and live here. That's my view.
And I think we've got a sense from talking to both of you about the relationships with, suppliers, the knock-on effect in other sectors. So when we look at restaurants, we're not talking about them in isolation. They're a very important part of the wider economy. And if we have a successful restaurant sector, it's a big part then of our tourism. It's a big part of our food production. It's just something that we should see that should keep growing.
Yeah, you look at farmers, and everybody says, "Oh, it's the most important job in the world." Farmers are. If they are making food, we're all in big trouble here. You can live with a broken arm. You can live with if you aren't getting food, you're in problems. And to me, where farmers need support. And then once again, just trickles down from restaurants to abattoirs, then food, and then restaurant, and then tourism, and then the tourist board, and all the rest of it. So it all just trickles down. And to me, we just have to appreciate how important our suppliers are, how important the restaurants are, and also our culture. Because once again, this all comes back to tourism. That's the key for us, is getting people to come here, and it also changes everybody's mindset who lives here as well. When you get Americans, Canadians, French, Spanish, whatever it may be, coming here, Asian, Japanese, whatever it may be, to me it changes our aspect of, makes us look out bigger, look at people around us, and bring the standards up.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's still, I think, for somebody who grew up here, it's still a shock sometimes to see tourists in large numbers in Belfast. But we do, and we see them now, as you say, with the Gulf or whatever. And I see them coming out of, say, for instance, the Grand Central Hotel there. Some days you'll be tripping over American tourists, jumping on a tour bus to go up, maybe to go and play golf or something in the North Coast or whatever. And you're reminded that we now have tourists here, which is not something we had before.
We've got a really strong tourist history. And there's so many good things, amazing things to see throughout the north of Ireland. There's amazing things to go and see. And the great thing is their size. We're so small. Like Americans have no problem traveling 2 hours. Yeah. But you go an hour and a half. At the furthest, you're there. Or you go just outside Downpatrick, or wherever it may be. Everything's on your doorstep. And that's the key thing. We're very small, and that's our strength.
So what's next, do you think, Marion? You're somebody who clearly likes challenges. You've done different roles, and not just within cooking. You've developed your speciality in the patisserie, but presumably you've got other fish to fry, so to speak.
Yes, I do. You know what? I'm always curious about what things might bring to my door. So just keep a mind open. Try to adjust, grow, and it's all about growing. So what's next?
Watch the space, really. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
And you're stretching yourself as a chef. You're keen to keep doing that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I found my job, and I'm not losing it, and I'm not doing anything else. So yes.
Fully committed. She's been won over then, Niall, and for you then, what's next on the horizon for you, do you think?
Being realistic, it's finishing Waterman off. Getting Waterman, I guess it's going to be a few years off until we get Waterman running exactly the way they want it. Cookery school, the mezzanine, our tasting room. And then next project then will be our old site in Haskey's in Commercial Court. That'll be possibly in the year, but once again, we're know how to do that there because we've moved all the girls, all our like offices are in there, all our central reservations and event works, all the girls are in that building. So to me, it's just at the moment now, Joanne and myself are being very hesitant what we're doing. We're being very cautious because we don't know how it's going to go. And I'm getting a certain age now, I'm 54. It takes a good 5 years to set a restaurant up, so to me, it's where I'm looking the next 10 years down the road. And that's where I am at the moment now, because you have to really look at your timing. And that's the key for us, especially within Belfast, see what's happening.
Well, listen, thank you both for joining us today on Trading Up. It's been great hearing all about your love of food in the restaurant business and getting a sense of kind of the numbers behind it. And of course, Trading Up is the business podcast from the Irish News, produced in association with EY. You can get in touch with me anytime. Just drop us an email to tradinguppodcast@gmail.com and join us again soon next time. Thanks.